Hello everyone, I'm Angeline.
And I'm Sam.
Welcome to English Digest. The topic for today's episode is sound. Now, there are pleasant sounds that can really put us into a good mood. And then there are sounds that drive us absolutely crazy. Hopefully it's not sounds like me and Sam's voice. Do certain sounds annoy you, Sam?
Yes, I'd say recently it's summer, so cicada can get really loud sometimes. And there's a tree outside my bedroom window, and that sounds like wow, especially in the evening.
In the evening, okay.
Yeah, because I don't get it, because normally they make that noise in the morning, right?
Okay.
But I don't know why, but recently, after the sound goes down, they start to make that sound. And when I'm about to go to bed, they are still making that sound.
Really?
So, yeah.
Maybe some of them are on different schedules. Some of them are night owls.
Yeah,
they
maybe.
stay up in the middle of the night. And then some of them are early birds.
Yeah, so that sound can, sometimes get me really annoyed. And also another sound, not so loud, but can certainly annoy me. That's people chewing.
Oh, I can't stand that sound either. I can't stand the sound of people chewing or people breathing heavily. You might have what scientists called misophonia. It's basically people with misophonia are emotionally affected by common sounds that most people don't usually pay attention to. So the sounds of gum smacking. You know when people chew gum and then they kind of smack their gum to make a sound? Or pens clicking, or doors slamming, or glasses clinking. All of this can trigger disgust, anger, rage, or even hatred. Is that what you feel when you hear people chewing?
I would say not so severe.
Not to that extreme, yeah.
Yes. OK, 这个我们会把它中文呢翻译为恐声症。那恐声症呢已经是一种心理疾病哦，表示说呢，你对这个某种特定的声音呢会感到焦虑、愤怒，影响你的工作进度，甚至是影响你的日常生活了。I mean, I hate people chewing, the sound of people chewing, but it's not that extreme like
It's
you said.
not that extreme, yeah. There are people who can't stand the sound of nails going down a blackboard, scratching down a blackboard. There are different sounds that I think can trigger this misophonia. Well, the focus of today's writing task is to write about the most pleasant sound for me. So luckily, we're not going to be writing about awful sounds. We're going to be writing about pleasant sounds. So without further ado, let's take a look at our writing task.
好的，马上来看一下今天的提示了。今天呢要写一篇文章呢来讨论声音哦，但是不要担心呢，不是这个让你生气、让你感到厌烦的声音，是让你感到愉悦的声音。他说呢，声音无所不在哦，举凡这个树叶摩擦的这个窸窣声，或者是呢这个冰淇淋推车的把布声，这些哦都是你可以在生活中听见的声音。请描述呢最令你感到愉悦的声音是什么，并描写这个声音哦以及它带给你的感受。文长哦至少120个单词，文可分段。
Sound is everywhere, from the sound of leaves rustling to the honking of the ice cream seller's horn. These are the sounds of everyday life. Now, our writing prompt asks us to write an essay about the sound you find the most pleasant. Describe this sound in detail and the emotion it evokes. The essay should be at least 120 words and be separated into paragraphs. So I personally love the sound of ocean waves washing up to the shore, as well as the sound of heavy rain rapping at the window. I find that water sounds are very calming. I guess the sound of water flowing brings me back to the times I went to the beach, as well as trips to the spa. That's probably why it's very relaxing for me. What about you, Sam? What are some pleasant sounds for you?
I also like the sound of ocean waves, and I also like the sound of chopping food.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because it's related to cooking, dining, feels like home maybe.
Does it remind you of your mom chopping or your dad chopping? So you like the sound of chopping food, and it has to be done by a knife, but not of people chomping down on food.
No. It has to be sharp, clean.
Sharp, okay.
Like that ninja game, you have to chopping fruits.
You like that sound.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we hope you've settled on one sound you find the most pleasant to write about. It's now time to think about what approach we're going to take with this essay. As our title suggests, we are writing a narrative. Now, narratives are the most widely used style of writing, and it's often used to describe an experience or event, an object, or a person. For the purposes of this writing exercise, you'll be writing about an object, which is the most pleasant sound. Your narrative might include a story or describe an experience or event that is related to this object.
好的，今天呢，我们既然是要描述声音哦，所以呢，它当然就是一篇叙述文。叙述文呢，运用的非常广泛哦，很常出现在这个考试的作文题目当中咯。那常见的呢，它会怎么考呢？它可能是要这个描述一个经验，或是描述一个事件。那另外呢，很常见的也是描述物品哦，比方说像今天我们要描述一个愉悦的声音 ，OK， 它就是属于这种描述物品、描述这个事情的一个文章。那另外呢，我们也可以这个描述一个人物 ，OK， 比方说呢，你的这个最敬仰的人啊，你生命中最重要的人等等哦，这些这个描述不管是事情、物品或者是人物的这个叙述文的文章呢，在考试题目都很常出现哦。
As always, the essay should have an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. So in the introduction, you will present the ideas that you are going to talk about in your composition. Here are some ideas you can discuss in your introduction. You can identify the sound you find most pleasant and explain why you chose to write about this particular sound, among other pleasant sounds. For example, maybe you find the sounds of nature very pleasant. Particularly, you love the sound of birds chirping because it reminds you of the time you lived in your grandmother's house, and there was always a bird chirping outside your window. Now, for Sam, this was not a pleasant experience.
No.
Birds chirping, right?
No.
Now, if you find that the sound you find most pleasant to you is one most people may disagree with, you can also write a narrative to explain how and why your opinion differs from the general public. So me and Sam both hate the sound of chewing, but maybe that is a very pleasant sound for you.
Yes.
And you enjoy that type of sound. So that's a good way to start your essay as well, because that's a very interesting, the fact that you like something that most people don't like, that's an interesting way to start. It definitely will intrigue your audience to kind of want to read more into what exactly this is. Or, for example, maybe you find it easier to concentrate when you have heavy metal music playing in the background because it helps you feel more inspired and active. Your introduction will also have your thesis statement, which is the sentence or two that explains what the article is going to be about.
好的，英文作文呢，架构呢，基本上就会分为这个引言 introduction、文章主体body， 以及最后要给它下一个结论 conclusion。那呢，我们今天的这个叙述文呢，也这个不例外我们今天也是必须要有这样子的架构呢，来撰写这篇文章。那首先呢 introduction 呢，就是我们的文章的引言哦，所以呢，它一开始就要写出来，让读者知道呢，你今天写这篇文章是为什么要写这篇文章，你有什么样的动机。那有几种做法呢？首先呢，你可以直接说明这个你今天要讲的是什么东西，以及呢它有什么特别的地方。比方说呢，刚刚讲到这个喜欢小鸟叫的声音，你可以呢直接在开头就写出来我就是喜欢听小鸟叫。为什么呢？因为呢它让我想起我在阿嬷家的时光。OK， 这个呢就可以是我们的这个引言让读者知道说，你今天要写的是什么样的故事。那呢如果呢你喜欢的声音跟别人不太一样比方说像这个我跟你准老师刚刚讲过，我们都很讨厌别人这个吃饭的声音，但是呢你很喜欢 OK， 你呢就可以解释一下为什么你喜欢，为什么你跟别人不一样。或者是呢比方说呢，像很多人工作的时候喜欢听这个比较轻松的这个背景音乐啦，但是呢你很不一样你喜欢这个重金属那种嘶吼的很狂野的这种时候呢你就可以说明比较一下你和一般人对这件事情的看法为什么不一样。用这种方式开头呢，可以让这个读者呢更有兴趣因为呢你跟平常人不太一样，比较特别，这个读者呢可能会被你这个激发起兴趣，想要继续把这个文章继续看完。那至于呢为什么你跟别人不一样，或是为什么你喜欢这个声音呢，我们就可以在后面这个文章主体的部分呢，来把你的故事、你的经验来说清楚了。
That's right. The body of the essay is where you're going to share your story and provide your supporting information.You can describe the order of events in a chronological order or use flashbacks. Whichever way you decide to tell your story, just remember to make sure your tenses are consistent throughout the essay. Now, the body of the essay is basically where you're going to explain your experience with this pleasant sound. You'll want to address when, where, who, why, how. What happens whenever you hear this sound? Maybe this sound reminds you of someone, who, or a place, where. Talk about why this sound evokes those particular emotions.One thing you'll want to keep in mind is that you'll need to include background information that will help the audience understand the story better. You'll also want to provide other supporting details to make the reader more involved in the story. When your audience reads the essay, they should be able to see the things you saw and feel the feelings you felt. Don't include any irrelevant details as you might confuse the reader or make them lose focus of what's important.
文章的主体在这边呢，你就要叙述你的理由，你的故事发生的经过。那这边呢，要提醒大家要特别注意了，在叙述的过程中呢，时态呢必须要一致或是连贯比方说呢，你在讲过去发生的事情呢，你就不会突然呢中间又插入一个未来式，这样子呢很可能会使你的读者混淆你呢如果是在讲过去发生的事情呢，我们就是全部都用过去式，或者是呢你要从这个过去讲到现在，那你的这个时间序呢应该就是要连贯，你的动词时态也必须连贯那在内容方面呢，你可以多多叙述相关的细节补充呢一些背景资料，让读者呢更了解是哪一些细节，你呢就可以问自己比方说像是是什么时候发生的，什么地点发生的，有哪一些人在这个故事里面出现，那还有呢就是这个故事发生的原因，OK， 为什么会发生？这个你可以问问自己，它是怎么发生的这个过程，以及呢最后有什么样的结果？回答这些问题，你呢就可以大概知道你故事的脉络是怎么样。但是这边呢还要提醒大家呢，你讲的这些细节一定是跟前面呢我们 introduction 的这个立场是相同的咯，这个逻辑是要这个顺畅合理的，不能够呢开头说这个我就喜欢小鸟叫的声音，然后呢你后面开始讲说你有一次坐飞机这个水打翻了的故事，这个完全没有相干，就太跳痛了。所以呢，注意到呢，我们的前后逻辑是要一致的。
You will end your essay with a conclusion. Now, the purpose of the conclusion is to sum up everything you've been talking about and explain the significance of this experience. So if you're struggling to come up with a conclusion, read through your intro and body and ask yourself, so what? Why does this matter? What message are you trying to convey? In this essay, you can talk about how this experience changed you or influenced your future actions.
记得呢，我们文章最后要给它下一个结论了。你可以呢说，在这个过程中呢，你有什么体悟，有什么学习 ，OK， 这个对你未来有什么影响？那想不出来的话呢，这个 Angeline 老师呢，刚刚有提示大家呢，可以把你的文章再读一遍，然后呢想一想你要给你的故事下一个什么样的结尾了。或是呢，另外有一个很简单的方式呢，你也可以回顾一下我们开头 introduction 怎么说的。我们结尾呢就怎么结，比方说呢，像是我们刚刚讲说这个，我喜欢小鸟叫的声音因为呢，我想起那年暑假呢，我在阿妈家发生了什么样的故事。把故事讲完之后呢，你就可以这个结论再呼应它，你就说，所以我喜欢小鸟叫的声音，因为呢会让我想起那年暑假美好的回忆。OK， 这样就是一个很棒的结尾，头尾呼应马上呢，我们呢就可以进入我们的大纲了。那在我们进入我们大纲的这个拟定之前呢，先补充给大家一些声音相关的词汇了。通常呢，我们在讲这个声音呢，让你觉得舒服的，它应该是怎么样呢？应该是 soft。OK，soft 就是形容东西很软、很柔软的。那形容声音呢，就是表示这个声音是很轻柔的。OK， 那另外呢，如果说它是一个这个比较闷、比较不响亮的声音，我们就会说 muted。注意到呢，mute 这个字呢，其实就是静音的意思，所以 muted 它是比较不响亮的。那如果呢，比方说我要讲说这个声音让我不太舒服，像我刚刚讲说这个外面蝉叫声很大声我耳朵都要聋了，我们呢就可以说deafening。OK，deaf 这个形容词就是表示耳朵聋了，所以 deafening 这个让你震耳欲聋大声到耳朵要这个坏掉，耳朵要破掉了 ear splitting。OK， 震耳欲聋一样的意思。那如果我们要形容它的音调是高是低呢，我们可以说 high pitched 或是 low pitched。OK，high pitched 就是声音是高的 ，OK， 音调是高的。那 low pitch 自然呢就是比较低沉，音调比较低的。那如果说它是刺耳的呢，你可以说它是这个 piercing。OK，pierce 就是比方说像你穿耳洞或者穿鼻环这个穿刺就是pierce。那 piercing 呢表示这个声音是这个刺入你的耳朵，很刺耳的。那相对于刺耳的呢，这个 dull 这个字呢，只是形容这个声音是很沉闷、很闷的那另外呢，补充给大家呢，这个我们文章里面有用到。假如说你要说这个声音是让你这个很愉悦、很舒适的，你可以说呢 comforting 就是让你舒适的，这个声音听起来很舒服。或者是呢 soothing 呢，你就想象一下，你去 SPA 的时候，是不是很舒服、很平静、很舒缓 ？OK， 就会呢使用 soothing 令人平静的这个单字。那马上呢，我们就可以开始进入我们的大纲喽。
So now that we have a general idea of how we're going to write this narrative paper, it's time to put our outline together. Writing an outline can be just as important as the essay itself. It can help you organize your ideas into a logical order that makes sense. Now, outlines can also help you identify where gaps in your thinking may exist and whether you have sufficient evidence to support each of your points. Let's take a look at the sample outline provided in the magazine. The writer identifies the most pleasant sound right off the bat. It says, "The most pleasant sound for me is ocean waves." The writer then goes on to describe this sound. It starts with the heavy crash of a wave. Then there's the steady sound of the water moving backward. This music rises and falls in a comforting rhythm.
Sounds very comforting.
It does, and very soothing just listening to this.
OK， 马上呢看到我们这个范例文章啊，它的大纲是怎么拟定的呢？首先呢，它一开头呢，一定是要先给出一个主题句，也就是我们刚刚说的 introduction， 马上呢要讲出来这个你今天故事的主轴是什么。所以呢，他马上就定义了他最喜欢的，他这个听了觉得舒服的声音是什么。他马上就说呢，这个他听起来最舒服的声音呢，就是 ocean waves， 就是这个海水这个波浪的声音哦。那呢，海水波浪的声音是什么样的声音呢？所以呢，他在他第一段里面呢，就描述一下。他说呢，这个 ocean waves 这个海浪的声音呢，一开始呢是一个很重的 crash of a wave， 这个浪起来的时候呢，撞到岸边的时候是一个很重击的声音。但是呢，马上怎么样呢 ？There's a steady sound， 马上呢变得平稳了，因为这个水呢已经往后退去了。那呢这样子呢，来来回回之间呢，他呢就形容呢这个声音是怎么样呢？一个 music 像音乐一样呢，它呢就有这个起伏哦，就形成了呢一个让他觉得非常舒适、非常舒缓的一个节奏了。
In the second topic sentence, the writer explains the emotion evoked from the sound of ocean waves. Okay, it says, I've always found the sound of the waves relaxing. Then the writer provides two statements to support this topic sentence. It says, I have an app on my phone that plays this sound.And then the sound brings back memories of my childhood.
所以呢，延续第一段描述他喜欢的声音是什么样的声音哦。那第二段呢，就要讲一讲为什么他觉得这个声音听起来很舒服哦。所以呢，他第二段的开头句呢，一样哦，是马上点出来他第二段要讲的。他说呢，他总是呢觉得这个海水的声音呢，听起来呢是很这个 relaxing 就好像我们刚刚讲的 soothing， 是让你觉得很放松、很舒缓的。那呢，他讲说他多喜欢这个声音呢？首先他说他手机上面呢有装一个 app， 这个应用程式呢来这个播放这个海水的声音哦。那呢这个声音让他有什么样的感情呢？他说这个声音呢会让他呢这个仿佛回到了儿时一样，唤起了他这个儿时的回忆了。
The writer concludes the essay with a statement to tie everything together. It says,Thanks to the sounds of my app, the memories will never leave me.
他最后呢下了一个很情感的一个结论了。他呢就说，这个幸亏呢有这个 app 呢在他的手机上呢帮他这个发出海浪的声音呢，因为有这个 app， 所以呢这些美好的童年回忆呢是永远不会离开他的啦。
So before we take a look at how this outline was transformed into writing, let's take a quick break. Don't go anywhere.Basic sample. The most pleasant sound that I can think of is ocean waves breaking on the shore. It starts with the heavy crash of a wave. Then there's the steady sound of the water as it moves backward across the stones and sand. The volume drops as the wave rolls back, but before it fades, there's another crash and the symphony begins again. This music rises and falls in a comforting rhythm. Its countless melodies are varied by time, the weather,and the nature of the beach. I've always found the sound of the waves relaxing. In fact, I have an app on my phone that plays this sound. It helps me fall asleep. In addition, this sound always brings back memories of the vacations I had with my family as a child. Those glorious days of sun, sea, and sand seem to last forever. Thanks to the sounds on my app, the memories will never leave me.Okay, so the writer did a very good job describing the sound of the ocean waves breaking on the shore. The writer compared this sound to a symphony. So a symphony is a long piece of music that is usually in 4 large separate sections, and that is performed by an orchestra.
在这边有这个作者呢，把这个海浪声呢描述得非常壮观、非常美妙、非常厉害哦。他说呢，这个海浪声听起来像是什么呢？他说像是一个 symphony 呢就是交响乐的意思了。那交响乐是什么样的乐呢？你想象一下在这个国家音乐厅里面哦，有这个 orchestra 就是管弦乐队，有一大票的人呢，这个在吹奏、弹奏乐器所这个组成的 symphony 交响乐。所以呢，对他来说呢，这个 海浪的声音呢是非常美妙的。
To give you more information, it's kind of like, the orchestra, we have the violin, we have the windpipes, we have all these different instruments that work together to create one piece of music. Now, likewise, when we talk about the ocean waves, the writer was talking about how time, the weather, and the nature of the beach all kind of affect the sound of the waves. So it's a really nice descriptive thing that, like, in this writing that this writer did. I think it's really nice, and we should commend this writer for doing that. So the writer used a lot of descriptive language throughout the essay. Words like volume, fade, rhythm, melody, all are used to talk about sound and music. Now, volume is used to talk about the amount of sound that is produced by a television, a radio, or a stereo, right? Turn up the volume or turn down the volume.
在这边有作者用了很多这个音乐术语哦，比方说呢，像是 volume 这个字呢就是音量，那你也可以说这个 turn up the volume， OK， 把音量调大，或是 turn down the volume， 把音量调小。那这个呢很常，这个我们看电视的时候，把音量切大切小，你就可以用这个 turn up、turn down 这个动词片语来搭配。那如果呢你要切静音呢，我们就说 mute，OK， 把这个声音切掉。
That's right, mute. Okay, rhythm is the regular repeated pattern of sounds or movements. We can say that the music has a fast, a slow, or a steady rhythm.
在这边呢 rhythm 这个字呢就是节奏哦，比方说呢我可以说 I've got no sense of rhythm， 我完全没有节奏感， so I'm a terrible dancer.
Oh, I'm terrible at dancing too, but I would say my rhythm is not that bad. I don't know, I think it's my hand-eye leg coordination
okay.
I have a problem with. Okay, melody. Melody is the arrangement of musical notes in a way that is pleasant.
Melody 呢这个字哦，不是指这个网红 Melody 呢，它在这边呢是那个名词，是表示旋律的意思哦。例如呢，有这个很老的片《第六感生死恋》里面呢，它的这个主题曲就叫做 Unchained Melody， 中文呢就翻译为这个奔放的旋律哦。一段歌曲，一段旋律，我们就会说 Melody。
Okay, so now we are going to take a look at our advanced sample writing. Advanced sample.I'm constantly surprised by the strong link between our senses and our memories. One such sensory memory that's especially precious to me is connected to the sound of the doves where I once lived. My family spent a few years of my childhood living near the glorious temperate forests of Northern California. The mourning doves would visit us at dawn and sing their melodious, soothing songs. I remember thinking at first that the birds were crying as their calls sound low and sad,like the sobs of a mother who's lost her child. The song always had the same 5 notes, a long, soft cuckoo that went from low to high, then 3 louder coos on a middle note. It sounded somewhat like an owl's hoots. That song became a familiar backdrop to cool spring mornings, and I enjoyed waking up to their calls. My family moved back to Taiwan when I started junior high,and I felt a loss at not hearing those familiar coos anymore. However, my affinity for mourning doves sparked an interest in bird watching. I've learned much about Taiwan's colorful and vibrant wild birds, including local doves with their own calls. Yet, no matter what, the mourning doves song will always be my favorite, as it was the soundtrack to the serene and misty mornings of my childhood.Okay, so the writer starts off the essay by talking about the connection between our senses and our memories. As you guys probably know, sounds, smells, tastes can evoke memories from the past. For this writer, the sound of doves brought back memories of his or her childhood. Now, the writer lived near temperate forests of Northern California. Now, a temperate forest is one that has moderate temperatures and experiences 4 distinct seasons: winter, spring, summer, and fall. So you can find trees with leaves called deciduous trees or trees with needles called conifers.
好，所以呢，在这边呢，我们的作者说呢，他在国外的时候呢，他是在哪里呢？是在 temperate 是指温带的哦。所以呢，我们刚刚讲的温带森林 temperate forest， 温带森林呢有什么特别呢？它会有一些这个特别的植物，比方说像刚刚讲到这个 deciduous， 就是落叶属的，比方说像是枫树啊这种，或者是呢像是在冷一点的地方，它会有针叶的哦 conifers 就是比方说像是这个 松柏啦、松树、柏树这些，就是属于这个针叶类的所以呢，他们是在一个 temperate forest 温带森林。那呢，对比于这个温带森林，如果你再往北边一点呢，就会到更冷比方说北极或南极，我们就会讲 polar。OK， 这个是极圈地带、寒带。那如果像我们台湾呢，台湾的话，我们应该是属于这个比较热带气候了，因为我们有很多的这个热带水果，比方像是芒果啦、香蕉等等。所以呢，在台湾我们这样子，或者是东南亚，我们就叫做 tropical 热带的。
The writer even describes the sound the doves make. Now, a coo is the low, soft cry that doves and pigeons make. The writer even compares these coos to the sobs of a mother who has lost her child. That is very descriptive, which helps the audience to imagine exactly what sound the doves would make. Words like coo, boom, thud are called onomatopoeia. An onomatopoeia is a word that sounds like the thing they are describing. For example, animal sounds are one of the most common forms of onomatopoeia, like quack or ribbit or woof.
onomatopoeia 这个字呢，就是我们中文说的状声词了。比方说，我们中文会说这个小狗是汪汪叫，或者小猫是喵喵叫。OK， 这些汪汪喵喵呢，就是我们的这个 onomatopoeia，就是这个状声词的意思。比方说，像刚刚举例这个coo，就是我们这个鸽子会叫的声音，或者是像是 quack quack， 就是鸭子会叫的声音。woof 呢，可能就是像狗啊、狼，他们会 woof woof， 就是我们中文说的汪汪叫。那 ribbit，how about ribbit？ What kind of animal would sound like? Rabbit?
Do you know what ribbit sounds like?
No.
Ribbit. No? A frog.
A frog? Ah, ribbit.
What word do you guys use for a frog sound?
呱呱叫。
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's really different.
Yeah, it's really different. Like 呱呱 and ribbit, it's like,
completely different.
It's completely
yeah.
different. Yeah, and there's another question. How do you tell if it's a pigeon or a dove?
Good question.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I know very little about birds. I don't know anything about birds, actually. Birds kind of freak me out, actually.
Okay.
But I think a bird watcher would be able to tell you. This writer might be able to tell you the difference between a pigeon and a dove. Okay, anyways, the writer talks about his or her affinity with mourning doves. Now, affinity is a strong feeling that you like and understand someone or something. For example, dogs are believed to have a special affinity with humans, which is why they are often called man's best friend.
在这边呢 affinity 这个字就是这个喜爱或是吸引。比方说呢，我们说这个狗跟人类之间有的这个情感，这个会容易吸引彼此，所以我们会说 affinity， 或者我们说 she has an affinity with children， 或是 an affinity for children。注意到我们后面可以加 with 或是加 for， 加上这个你受到吸引、你喜爱的东西。
Like she's good with children. She knows how to entertain them. She knows how to teach them. She would make a good teacher and a good mother.
Yes.
Okay, so although the writer no longer gets to hear the sound of doves cooing in the morning, the fascination with this sound inspired the writer to pick up a new hobby. Now that's bird watching. As the name suggests, a bird watcher is someone who watches wild birds and tries to recognize different types.
Bird watcher 呢，就是这个赏鸟的人哦，所以我们说 bird watching 就是赏鸟的意思。
Now, some movies have very awesome soundtracks. A soundtrack is the recorded music from a film. I love the soundtracks of Disney movies. How about you?
Me too. I grew up listening to The Lion King
me
and
too.
Pocahontas.
Okay, so we've come to the end of our episode for today. Thanks for joining us. We hope this was a very interesting episode and also a helpful one to help you guys write your essays for the pleasant sounds that you guys want to write about. That is all that we have for today. So this is Angeline signing off.
This is Sam.
Goodbye.
Bye.